Hey guys, welcome back to Bite of Banality. So this morning I made a really easy and healthy tomato bisque like soup. I did do some actual recording for it, but the audio came out horrible and I've been up since about 2 o'clock and I looked awful. So I decided that I was just going to do some voiceover. For this recipe, you're going to start by cutting up one large yellow onion. I'm actually going to just skip through a few parts because it's really not that exciting. So you just want to cut it in half, and at this point, it doesn't really matter how you cut it. It can look as ugly or as pretty as you want because it's a bisque and it's going to get pureed anyway. But just get it chopped up. Other than that, it doesn't really matter. If your hands are bothering you, though, you can also use like frozen onions in place of this. I was having a really hard time chopping it because my hands hurt. So, an alternative to cutting your own onions, I suppose. At this point, I'm just going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I don't really measure it, but I mean, of course you can. You can do whatever you want. It's your kitchen. I set the temperature to about medium, which was about 260 degrees for the induction burner. On your regular stovetop, that would be about a 4 or a 5 if you have the numbers on your dial. And you're just going to stir and watch for about the next 10 to 15 minutes, making sure nothing burns, adjusting the heat if necessary. And here's an up close action view with all the steam. Very, very exciting, isn't it? While the onions are cooking is when I like to start seasoning. You can use regular salt, but I actually really like chicken or vegetable base. I don't know why. It just makes everything taste so much better, probably because of all the MSG in there. But I added about a teaspoon and just start stirring and letting the onions cook down a bit more. After about 8 to 10 minutes, this is what you're looking for, a nice golden brown look to it. And you can see on my cat's toys there. They are baby princesses and they like to be treated as such. But anyway, back to the onions, and this is what you want to look for. Now you want to deglaze the pan. If you didn't use chicken base or vegetable base, you can definitely use chicken stock or vegetable stock. I'm just going to use water. You can also use white wine, but I don't like the taste of white wine, so just water. Just pour it in there. Let all the nice bits come out. I'm just going to use canned crushed tomatoes. It's just cheap and easy. You can also use fresh tomatoes. There's no guarantee about how the quality is going to be unless you pick them yourself or know who did. You can also use the Tetra Pak as well. So you see me struggling to find the garbage. There we go. I'm very proud of myself. But you're just going to also toss in some basil. I'm not chopping it up or anything. And I use about a handful of fresh basil because I'm going to puree this. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like at this point. Now, to balance out the acidity of the tomatoes, I put in about a teaspoon of regular sugar. Usually I use a sugar alternative, but since my husband's going to be eating this and he doesn't like that, regular sugar is fine. But feel free to use anything that you want or nothing at all. And then just give it a nice stir or a mean stir, whatever you feel you need to do. If you need to take some aggression out on the tomatoes, then go for it. In an attempt to be healthier, I'm going to use dry milk powder instead of heavy cream. I added about 2 cups of this to it. I would also add about 2 cups of heavy cream. If you can't have dairy, my recommendation would be to find a non-dairy creamer, not a non-dairy milk, like a non-dairy creamer. Like my favorite replacement is a So Delicious coconut milk creamer, something that's just thick, plain flavored. Please don't add vanilla to it. But I would not use whole milk or skim milk or 2% because those will curdle. And I think that's what I was trying to explain here. But just stick to the dry milk powder, non-dairy creamer if you need to, or actual cream if you want to go absolutely crazy and fancy. I just use my immersion blender for this. If you don't have one, then You can use a regular blender, or you can use a food processor, or you can leave it as is, but I personally prefer pureed soups. It's definitely easier on my jaw. But if you want it thick and chunky, then girl, you go get it thick and chunky. After it's pureed, I usually just stir it for a couple minutes, and then you're going to want to let it cook for about 1 to 2 hours on medium low. So that would be about 2 or 3 on your stovetop if you have one of those little dials again. This is definitely going to let the flavors start to come together. Also, taste for seasoning. I did add more salt, so I ended up adding another teaspoon of chicken base. Um, and then I believe I also ended up adding another little bit of basil at the end. I had some dried basil, so I threw that in, but that was totally optional. My taste has been off lately, so I would just stick with the fresh basil if you can, but if you need to use dried basil, I would go for about a tablespoon of that. I also am not a fan of like garlic or pepper or anything in this, but you can use it if you want to. But I like this as a foundation for other things like grilled cheeses or mac and cheese or whatever. And after a couple hours, this is what you get: a delicious tomato bisque like soup. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.